friends, it's Romania Black, and I'm so excited because we are on episode 11 of Witch Hat Atelier, and I'm excited for a couple reasons. The main one, though, is I thought this was the penultimate episode. People were like, well, do you check online? I was like, no, not really, because I don't want to be spoiled. So I try to stay away from all spoilers. And I, for some reason, thought this was a 12-episode core. I thought it was just cut and dry 12. Nah. We're getting the lucky number 13 thrown in there. So I found out that there's actually 13 episodes in this season. And I was like, yes, because I'm not ready to be caught up with Witch Hat Atelier. I'm excited to start Witch Hat Atelier Kitchen, which is going to be later in July. We're going to do chapter 1 of that here very shortly. But I was not ready to end this season. So getting an extra episode, super excited about. Also excited because we get more brimmed caps information. I'm excited about that. I'm like, yes, please. So I'm ready to see where that's going to go. So I have a couple of comments from episode 9, though, and some information about the dub that I want to talk about before we get started as I throw this toy to my dog, Huckleberry. Huckleberry would be a brimmed cap in a heartbeat. He would be a brimmed cap in a heartbeat. Ruby is a full-fledged witch from the Society of Witches. She'd be a pointed hat for sure. Huckleberry, brimmed cap, 100%. Michelle Jackson for episode 9 says, I just learned the most fun of facts. The hex code, COCOOO, yields the color of Coco's hair. And the hex code OOCOCO yields the color of Qifrey's apprentices' uniforms. Shirayama's attention to detail is unmatched. And if you look at these hex codes, they just look like different ways to say Coco. I'm like, it's so good. It's so good. I've been wondering why Coco the entire time. Like, I don't know necessarily the meanings behind Richeh and Agott and all that. We talked about them earlier on in the series in the discussion, but I was like, why Coco? Because her hair's not brown or anything. Now, the color scheme, that makes more sense. So that's so genius. I love that. So thank you, Michelle. I appreciate that. Alexandra Q for episode 9 says, the whole thing with the history of the twin bottles was fascinating, but it did beg the question for me, how on earth Qifrey knows about this? Like, isn't that information supposed to have been lost when the healer's witch's memories were erased? As I understand it, there shouldn't be any records of it that Qifrey should know, and yet he does. Qifrey knows things he shouldn't know. And are we surprised about that? No, but that does beg a really good question, like how? He's clearly had some run-in with the brimmed caps at some point. I am curious if his mentor that he studied under knew too much and let Qifrey in on the secrets, or if Qifrey met the brimmed caps and they let him know, or maybe his mentor might have ended up becoming a brimmed cap. We don't know. There's so many possibilities of what could have happened to give Qifrey that knowledge. I know we're not going to get hardly any, if any, of the lore this season, but I'm going to be very excited when we start to dive a little bit deeper into Qifrey's backstory. That's going to be very fun. That's going to be very fun indeed. Alexander Q also said, Tetia wanting to make her cap a double-pointed cap is something that surprised me. I thought that wouldn't be allowed. I thought any variation of a cap would not be permitted in a society that literally named their villains by the shape of their caps. Maybe since the points, it's either one of two things. Maybe since the two-pointed cap doesn't have a brim, it's okay. It's still the pointed. It's even, you're double the pointed cap society. You're doubling down on the witch society standards. Or option B is that Qifrey knows that Tetia is a young girl and that she's going to figure out the truths of the world. Like, it's kind of like when as a kid, you're like, where do babies come from? And they're like, it's from the stork. And they're like, oh, wow. And then you find out later on that that's not the case. Maybe Qifrey's like, when she's older, I'll tell her that she can't have a double-pointed hat. Although, if that's the case, I kind of would have liked to have added a little dose of reality in that moment. I'm surprised Olruggio didn't say anything, but I don't think Olruggio was there. I think Olruggio would have spoke up and been like, you can't have a two-pointed cap, or like something like that. I think he would have spoke up, but I don't know. Maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll see. Qifrey does have a tendency to want to shelter the girls a little bit, so I wouldn't be surprised if the answer is no, you can't do that, but Qifrey doesn't want to say anything because he doesn't want to like douse her hopes in that moment, especially because, you know, she was being very pro pointed hat society during that exchange. So then our final comment is from Daewoo3YY for episode 9. Personally, I don't think Richeh could be recruited by the brimmed caps because she probably wouldn't want to submit to their authority either. They just tricked Coco into drawing a harmful spell that she wouldn't have drawn of her own free will. And before that, they forced Coco to take their own test via the Dragon Labyrinth. Now, I do want to clarify, the they that tricked Coco was the Masked Witch. The other Brimmed Caps have no part in this. That is just the Masked Witch, who has a very clear emotional attachment and investment in Coco. So I'm not going to put that all in the Brimmed Caps. I'm going to say that's the Masked Witch doing that, doing the test and doing the spell, because they have some weird, like, obsession with Coco and about her being, like, the messiah for the Brimmed Caps. So I'm not going to attribute that to the entire Brimmed Cap Society, but I am very curious to see how their organization is run. If they're, like, chaos, or if they're organized, if they have a code. We don't know anything about them. We know nothing about the Brimmed Caps. So we can't assume anything until we learn more from what the story gives us. But I do like what Daewoo says about Richeh not wanting to submit to authority, because I don't think she would either. So then Daewoo says, it's an interesting question though. What do you think the Brimmed Caps would offer each girl in an attempt to recruit them? Oh, there are things they could offer. I think that I was talking about in someone on Discord, it was like Tarta, they would offer to heal his eyes. Easily. They would offer to heal his eyes so that he wasn't silver washed. Now, whether or not he would take them up on that offer is another debate, but I think they would offer him that. Agott and Richeh, I feel they would offer both power and freedom. I think they could offer Agott being like, you want the power to stand on your own and be able to be your own witch and to be considered worthy. We'll teach you the spells and the way to do that. And so I think that's what they would try to tempt her with. With Richeh, I think they'd tempt her with freedom. I honestly think that the Brimmed Caps would be like, you know, in our group, we don't have tests. You just get to be a witch and do whatever you want. It's like, you know, it's like the Foot Clan, you know, in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They're like, once you're here, you're part of the system. If you want to go higher and you want to be like one of the elite echelon, sure, you can do that. But if you want to just be a cool witch, we got you covered. And then with Coco, I feel like Coco and Tetia would be the harder ones to convince. I feel Coco, it's tempting her with the answers and opportunity to save her mom. But I feel like Coco would maybe be able to resist those temptations a little bit more than Agott or Richeh. I don't know why. I just get that vibe. And I think Tetia would be the hardest to convince because she's so embedded in the pointed cap system and she already has like goals and ambitions within it. But if she finds out she can't have a double pointed hat and the Brimmed Caps are like, we can make you one, then that might be the way that they convince her. That might be the way that they convince her. So I don't know, but it's a very good question. The Brimmed Caps fascinate me. I want to learn more about them all the time. So with the dub for episode 10 was really good. I enjoyed it quite a bit. The line from Tarta saying, oh, not with you sparkling away like that was really cute with Qifrey. And then Coco saying this spell is for you, Tarta. Look, I love the comment on YouTube that was like, Coco's got two hands. She can be shipped with both Tarta and Agott. That's where I stand with that as well. And then also Qifrey saying, like, when the one guy was, you know, saying, you know, it's easy for witches, and Qifrey's like, oh, things are easy for witches. Hardly. If they were, we wouldn't have to worry and suffer as we do. Again, do I feel bad for the witches? Not really. I kind of don't. I know that they have it hard because they have to keep up with this system that they've set up and are willingly going along with, you know? But at the same vein, I'm kind of like, I don't know. I get a little bit cynical about it because in my mind, I'm like, but you all are witches. You don't have to keep with the same system. If you don't like something, you can change it. Or do you not want to change it because you're afraid of what will happen? Or who's pulling the strings? Or I don't know. The system they have in place right now feels like it could so easily be corrupted. So easily be corrupted. You are just banking on the assumption that everybody's going to play nice and by the rules and no one's going to take advantage of the system. But I don't know. The real world's made me very cynical to that approach. So we shall see. I do think that there are hardships these witches have to deal with, but it's kind of like the hardships you've self-imposed upon yourself. So it's kind of like you've made this hard for yourself. So can I really feel too bad for you? I don't know. I do feel bad for some of the circumstances, but I need to know more. I need to know more about the Witch Society, more about the Brimmed Caps. I have so much I'm excited by, and I cannot wait to see where we go with it. But Anyway, I've talked for almost 10 minutes. Thank you all so much for your comments and your kind words and for following along with me. This series is so much fun to talk about. I love it so much, and I'm excited to be here in episode 11. All right, so let's do this, shall we? We're going to watch episode 11 of Witch Hat Atelier, and we're going to get this thing started here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. So, this was not what I was expecting for the second test. I was not expecting this at all. This is interesting. And my dog was having me throw this while I was watching. You will not believe me when I tell you I played with him all day with this toy. And he ran through under my desk and hit the camera cord and knocked it out like mid-reaction. And I was like, Huckleberry! So, of course, now they'll probably drop it and not be with it at all. So, anyway... But this was not what I was expecting for the second test, especially the way that the brimmed caps led up to saying, like, because they said that the trainees, the apprentices, would be lured away from the main witches, which I guess Alaira is just there to send them on their way and maybe to watch over, but she seems very competent. So I'm curious how the brimmed caps will try to do anything without her noticing. She seems like not only is she really competent, but she has some skills that I think if I were a brimmed cap, I would not want to go against Alaira. She seems rather interesting. But there was also there's some things with the magic in this episode that I was like, ooh, we are very close to the pot calling the kettle black. We are very close to being like, oh, we can't use it for this, but we can use it for that. Okay. So I'm like, which is going to be fun to talk about, but... Richeh, our girl Richeh, I was not prepared for this story to focus on her and to get some backstory with her or for her to take this test with Agott. That is interesting in itself, which, why not Tetia? I mean, Coco makes sense. We're not going to get crazy. We're not going to have Coco do it, but why not Tetia? Although they did establish Tetia needs some more practice, so... curious. We're going to put Richeh up here because we have a lot to talk about with her. And we're going to put Agott over here because we have some things with her. And then we're going to put some stuff about magic over here. Our magic and our little bypasses. Our bypasses to using forbidden magic, which Olruggio is doing it the right way. He has the correct way to go about it. Also, I have so much to say about that, but we're not there yet. So let's just go ahead and start and dive into this episode and break it down, y'all, because within the first minute, I was like, oh, we have things we need to talk about. And the episode was going too fast. So here in 3, 2, 1, the episode was going too fast for me just to comment upon it. So we start out by getting these little scaled Scalewolves, which look like sand shrew. They look like a low-end sand shrew from Pokemon, and like if armadillos were wolves. So I find that fun. I find that fascinating. But yeah, so the idea is that they shed their scales so that they can not hurt their offspring when they're born. And so it's mating season all around, because it's mating season for these birds, these merfins. It's mating season for the Scalewolves. June is busting out all over. Ollie and Qifrey, it might be for them. It's all over the place. But she says they shed their plate scale fur through their impacts to prevent harm for their offspring. So we have this discussion about the idea of shedding one's armor to not only to protect the offspring is the outcome of it, but also to grow closer to another. Because with the wolves, the growing closer to another is going to produce the offspring. That's the whole idea, right? But in this, Agott is looking at it going, even though they could stay as strong as they are if they chose not to mate. But, there's this, I thought that I had learned nothing to learn from her. And then we immediately cut to this. So if you are an Agott and Coco shipper, this moment of her connecting, and it's not necessarily like mating or anything, but it's the idea of creating a relationship. So she's like, if we were just isolated, she's like, if we just stayed isolated, we could keep our armor on. Which is true. She's like, if the wolves weren't trying to mate with each other and worried about hurting the cubs, then they could just keep their armor on and be strong. But Agott is kind of exploring this idea of like, I could do that. I could keep my distance and not learn and not try to get close to Coco. But she's slowly realizing that Coco could teach her about the magic world in ways that she had not thought about. She's like, I didn't think I had anything to learn from this girl. She was an outsider. Like, what could she bring to the table? And then she's like, the outsider doesn't belong here. They have nothing to offer the world of magic. But if she correctly learns how everything works, the crazy thing about this is that as she is thinking this, she was not privy to Coco in the last episode helping Tarda and giving him a spell to assist him. I wish Agott could have seen that. That would have been so good, because then she could have definitely seen that, yeah, of course Coco can contribute to the world of magic. And then there's this line, if she learns correctly how everything works, how is she any different from us? Yeah, that's the point. It's like you all are the same species. You are all human. And the only difference is that some of you have access to knowledge that other people don't. But anybody that gets a pen and parchment and learns how to make the seals can use magic. It's accessible theoretically to anyone. It's just to what extent and in what way. Like you can, if you give anybody a piano and a book of music, then they can teach themselves how to play the piano eventually. But the trick is you've got to teach them what the music means and how to use the resources that you give them. So any like outsider could come across the casting ink and the parchment, but if they don't know how to draw the spells and how to use it, then they're not going to be able to use magic. So there has to be an education there. There has to be knowledge given, but anybody could do magic if they're taught those two things. So, and I think Agott as a kid is slowly realizing that. Now, this is, some people have commented about Coco and how Easties has viewed her as being an issue and a problem. And I kind of now in this episode maybe see where people are coming from with that, is that there is this view between the witch world and the outside world that neither of them belong within the other realms. In the last episode, those snobby witches that were like helping to clean up the incident at the pub, they were telling Qifrey, they're like, the outsiders will never understand our world. And it's like, well, of course they won't, because you won't tell them about it. And how could they know? Because they can't experience it. So why do you expect them to understand? And meanwhile, the outsiders believe that the witch world isn't accessible because they've been lied to and told that you had to be born with that ability to be a part of it. So both of these worlds have over time convinced the other that they cannot be together and that they cannot exclusively share the same stage. But Coco is kind of showing that outsiders can be adept at witch society. They can learn the things. They can be successful. And again, because I think that inherently the witch world has become, maybe it didn't start out that way. Maybe that wasn't the original, good intentions of our three wise ancient ones. But I think that over time, the witch world has become kind of this sort of exclusionary kind of, self-righteous group, whether, to varying extents. Obviously, the one guy, he's like high up on the echelon. We'll talk about him when we get there. I didn't like him at all. But in a way, they kind of look down on the outsiders, and it's like, bitch, they're the same as you. There is no difference. You just come with more resources and knowledge than they've had access to, but that doesn't make them dumber. It just means that they're ignorant. They don't know. They don't know because you've not told them. How could they know? So it's creating this interesting dilemma, and I kind of see what people are saying now. What I'm getting at is Easties is worried that Coco is going to show the witching world that, the outsiders, they could be part of our world. Because if you get enough of them, then it's not exclusionary anymore. And then what do you do? So it's creating this conundrum, like the chasm he's talking about, the crack in the dam. Like Agott's now seeing the crack in the dam. And that's so interesting. So I feel like we're going to go through that intro at the end of this. Although I'm like, if I have to wait seasons before Coco gets that dang pin that is being made by Tarda, I don't know what we'll do. Regardless, she's gotten better. She's gotten better with the pin that she's not good at. And so, also, if you are rewatching this episode, rewatch it and watch Brush Buddy the entire time. Because Brush Buddy has a lot of great animations in this. He's very cute. But yeah, so we have a different bottle of ink and doing different spells. And I saw Richeh in the background from the opening, but I was like, when are we going to get her mentioned in this? And then she pops in. I didn't even see Olruggio on the couch. Didn't spot him at all. I was like, oh, there he is. So we get this idea from Coco about the same seals that she uses over and over again. And to Qifrey's credit, he talks about specialties and how your specialty, what you're most proficient at, can be a source of comfort and confidence. So he's like, you should have spells you're really good at, because that will help you to be confident in yourself when you need to be courageous, when you need to use magic to help others and you're unsure what to do. He's like, you can fall back on your laurels. You can use what you're knowledgeable in to be a foundation and go from there. Like, I think that's very smart. I think that's a really good teachable moment. But he also kind of does like what Agott says, and says, but you can't just have only those. You can't just only fall back on the same spell, because it's not going to be applicable in every single situation. You need to have variety. And his whole thing is that by doing this exploration of other spells, you may find others that you like and you want to become a new specialty. So it's this process of learning never ends. You should constantly want to learn about different things and new things, because they may become something that you grow a huge interest in and that you didn't even expect to find an interest in, you know? Now, am I surprised that Agott's specialty are the straight lines? No, because like Qifrey points out, he takes my job. He says that, you know, her line work with cutting the fabric is indicative of why she's good at this. And I love that world building. Like, it's great characterization on her part. She's not so good at the swirls, but she's better at the straight lines, right? It's kind of like if you've ever drawn before. I love drawing people. I love drawing. I could draw a person like that instantly. You ask me to draw a landscape and it's going to take me 3 days. I'll just be like meticulously, because I'm not confident in it. But, you know, the thing is, it's kind of like Book Talk had a whole thing earlier last year where people were like, there was a writer that we're going to talk about that author. I don't know I can't remember their name exactly. And I'm not going to like talk anything bad about them, but their whole thing was that they'd been working on this same story over and over and over again for like years and years and years. We'll talk about it when we get to Richeh, because I think it's a good real world analogy to this situation. But the point is that, you know, she needs to get better. Coco needs to get better at a variety of spells if she's going to save her mom. She can't just rely on the straight edges, because that's not going to be good enough, because we see how crazy and complicated these spells get. I do love the way that Qifrey's voice actor says it'll give you confidence when you need to believe in yourself. That was great line reading by his voice actor. And so I'm assuming that Qifrey's spells that he's good at are the water spells, because he's really good at water magic. So he likes the swirls. But yeah, you know, if you're going to be a good artist, you need to try multiple genres. When I took art classes in college, because I was a minor for art, like for a hot second, we had to do painting classes. We had to do pottery. We had to do drawing. We had to do graphite. We had to do charcoal. And there was a lot of mediums I didn't like at all, but we had to practice in all of them to strengthen the skills that we are good at, to help us recognize the skills that we know we're good at, and also to experiment, because you just never know. Until you try it, you don't know if you're going to like it or not. Like, you may develop a love of watercolor by practicing it, but if you never try and you just like do ink and graphite your whole life, then you might be missing out on something that's really important that you could be actually really good at. So anyway, Coco talks about her her specialty, and I love this. She's like, I'm going to charge straight into success. She's been hanging out with Olruggio and getting his dad jokes. That is so adorable. And Qifrey's like, I've created a monster. I was like, Qifrey, you are a monster. So you have no room to talk. And he's like, wait. You'll master your specialty spells without even trying, but you need to actively work to pin down other ones. This run right here, this reminds me of when I was working on my thesis for grad school. One of my thesis defense directors, he was this older gentleman. He was a doctor and he was so smart. But he was like, if you have extra time, here's about 500 pages of reading you can do each week. And I was like, I had the same expression that Coco did. I was like, or, I was like, right, that is literally me. That was me. And so then she's like, casting seals seem even more impressive now than ever before. What is this business? Why is there an eye? What is this spell with all the ziggy zags? And what is this one? This looks crazy. I'm so intrigued by what this all means. I wonder if the manga will go into more detail with that. I'm going to read the manga eventually. And so I'm wondering if they'll have like a little like glossary or guide that'll show you what each symbol means. It would be kind of awkward to have it in the episode itself, but maybe on like an extra bonus page or something. That would be interesting. Yeah, because all these lines, crazy. That one on the side that's out in the bottom right corner looks like a face. Whenever you see faces in like trees or in objects, that looks like it's like an oni, has like a face. It's got like two eyes there, and the little mouth makes it go like one of those faces. Interesting. What the fudge is this? She's like, now that I know how they work, I can appreciate how hard they must have been to design. Indeed, there's been a lot of work go into these spells over time, which is so fascinating. But if you think about it, I wonder how many of these spells, the crazy thing to think about is how many of these spells were created by people who had their memory wiped. That's the crazy thing. How many of these spells were made by people who ended up having their memories wiped and don't even have any current knowledge that their magic is still being used? That's so wild. The memory wiping makes me nervous and scared, and I don't like it. But anyway, as Coco is using the word amazing over and over again, Richeh is not amused, nor is she impressed. And that's when Coco's like, don't you want to look with me, Richeh? And Richeh's like, nope, no interest at all. So Richeh only wants to work on her own magic. She has no desire to look into anyone else. That's it. That's all she wants to do. No more. No others. And there's two sides of that. I feel like in terms of real world application, there's two sides of that. As a content creator, I don't honestly watch a lot of other reactions, only because of time, mainly because I'm always working on my own stuff. And it's hard for me to watch other reactors of series that I'm watching because I don't want, like, I have a bad habit of going into the comment section because I love the comment section of anything. And I don't want to do that and tempt myself because I know I'll see spoilers. But also I don't want to influence my own style. So I like what I do and I like how I do it. And I don't want to be like I don't want to be a cookie cutter. I'm very much like, no, not like that at all. So I could see Richeh in that understanding that she doesn't want to be influenced. However, she is just creating a detriment to herself in the long run with magic because she just wants to... It's like, what is she going to do if she stays in the same... We talked a little bit about this a few episodes ago. If she stays in the same place forever, I imagine at some point they're going to take action if you don't advance. It feels as if you can't pass the tests. At some point, they're going to take action. They're not going to let you stay an apprentice. That's not how this works. So, for example, Tarda, the only reason I think they've let him keep his memory at this point is because he can create the wands. Otherwise, I think they would have wiped his memory and sent him onto the mainland and been like, well, you can't be a witch, bye. But because he's with Nolnoa and he creates the wands and has a usefulness, then they let him stay. With Richeh, if she's not contributing to the witch society, I would feel that the pointed hats would view her as a liability because they're like, you're not learning magic, You're not helping the Witch Society. You're not being sustainable. You're a liability because if you just stay in this place, you might be targeted by the brimmed caps, or you might make a mistake in front of the humans and ruin our whole guise, and we can't have that. So it's one of those situations where, like, when you're in graduate school or college, you have checkpoints. So, like in grad school, for example, going back to that, when I was doing my thesis, we had checkpoints. Like, you had to finish a chapter, you had to get this chapter, you had to move on, you had to keep moving forward. And as long as you did that, it wasn't hard to get, like, your thesis and stuff done. Like, the defense at the end, the final test and stuff is almost like a celebration, because it's like you did all this hard work and then now it's getting celebrated. But if you couldn't meet the deadlines and if you couldn't do the work, they were like, maybe this isn't for you. And so I feel as if, Qifrey's not telling Richeh this, but I feel like in the back, kind of lingering in the corner is the reality that if Richeh can't pass the test and become a witch, then they're going to wipe her memory out and kick her out. And for Qifrey, that's like the worst thing that could happen to you, is for you to lose your love of magic and to lose the knowledge of it. Like, to Qifrey, that seems like the worst thing that could happen. So I think that with that in mind, this is not a possibility that's going to be sustainable. She can't just work on her own magic forever. The witch society that we exist in this world, the pointed cap society, is not going to allow for that. No. So it's either eventually take the test, or you may become an outsider if they deem that you are a threat otherwise. And I could see them doing that because it didn't take much for Easties to have probable cause to erase Coco's memories. So I assume there's not that much that it would take for that to happen. And I love that Coco's like, but you'll learn so much. And she's like, no. And Qifrey's like, it's not just about training your hands, Richeh. And, if there's more to it than that, you need to look at advanced spells to train your eye. And she's like, I don't want to. And she throws a little bit of a tantrum there and creates that big old ice spell, which I want to go back and look at the stuff for the ice. I guess the crosshatch is the ice, because she has the lines that are containing it within that circle there. Interesting. And then she storms off. I do love that the first thing Qifrey asks, he doesn't get mad at her for losing her temper. He doesn't yell at her. He doesn't chide her. Now you can see Olruggio. Oh my gosh, now you see him on the couch, slouching around, lounging around like a bum. Now you can see him with the sylph shoe and everything. I love that the first thing Qifrey does is check to make sure she's okay, to see that she's not hurt. That part about him I love. I love that he cares about her and wants to make sure she's okay. And he's like, you shouldn't cast when you're upset. That's really dangerous. And then she gets mad and walks away. And Coco chases after her. And that's when Olruggio steps in. So he's doing his job as the watchful eye to make sure that Qifrey's doing his duties, right, as the teacher. But he's like, when you close your eyes to the guideposts of learning and shut your ears to the word of your teacher, which he's talking about Richeh there, he's like, you'll go nowhere fast. So he's talking about Richeh not following Qifrey's advice, which means he does think that Qifrey is a good teacher. Which, Olruggio, Qifrey's got him wrapped around his little finger. Like, there ain't much Qifrey's got to do to get Olruggio on his side. Yeah. And Qifrey's like, what, who, me? Also, can we talk about... So her room was upstairs, but I guess it's built into the hill, maybe? And then she has inside the pot, like, her own little lair. This is so freaking cool. I love the fact that it's a springboard to hold the scrolls on, but then it also functions as an entrance into the lair. Hell yeah. Love that. Like, it's in the hillside. This is so cool. Like the little grotto. So fascinating. I also wonder if this is a tie to, like, if she made this place look like somewhere that she had near her home. Because I don't know if the dream that she had was just a dream, so it was mixing, like, this area with her past. Or if in her past she was in a place like this. I don't know. Also, if that's a giant carapace yam that she's carved into a chair, that's a huge-ass carapace yam. So I don't know if that's the case either. But I love this drawing station. It looks like something that an artist would have in the modern world. Like, you know, you have your egg chair, you've got your stand with your drawing pad, you've got your resources beside you, you've got your trinkets and the stuff to make the good vibes and ambiance everywhere. I love it. It's giving modern artist, it's giving Totoro. Everything about this is so cool and lush. It's just, I dig it. The tourist in me was very excited about this. And then she turns around in the chair like a freaking Bond villain with Brush Buddy. She like turns around like Dr. Evil with the Brush Buddy beside her. I can see why Brush Buddy likes Richeh, because this is very, very in tune with nature and very, you know, like the wild aesthetic. I could see Brush Buddy liking this. I could see this. I love it. But also, I dig that chair. That's so freaking cool. But yeah, she's like, I didn't say you could come in. Look, Richeh's feeling a little cold and angsty right now, but in the world of Coco, there is no angstiness. Like, this girl could melt I liked we had the ice spell with Richeh, suggesting that Richeh's kind of tied to ice. And then we had Agott earlier that was like a flame, which is kind of cool. And then you have Tetia, who is like all about the cloud. And then Coco is of the earth. Coco is of the earth. So we have Richeh with the ice, Agott with the fire, Tetia with the cloud, and then you have Coco that has like the earth sign. So that's fun. Love that. But yeah, you can't be mad at Coco. She's too sweet and innocent. The moment she starts complimenting Richeh's spell, it's like, well, okay, I guess you can stay. I just made it myself, but it doesn't have a name yet. And she says the spell is beautiful, like the crystal ribbons. We don't know exactly their worth, although I have a feeling that since Richeh is being tested in these episodes, she might use her spell to create something. So these crystal ribbons, it looked as if the crystal ribbons were like, it looks as if they're flexible, but they also could become like a quartz, like a glass stone. It seemed like when she scrunched them up together, they took like a more like firm shape. So that could be interesting. I'm curious what we'll get with that. But yeah, I feel like something with those ribbons are going to come to play in this test. And this is super cute. Like Coco is so in awe of the world of magic that any magic that's performed around her, she just thinks is wonderful. And of course, what better way to stroke a fellow witch's ego than to say that their spells are amazing. So, and Richeh's had some good ones. She's done the stone breaking spell. She's done that one. She's like, you can have one of those crystal ribbons if you want them. She says, I love it. Thank you. So then she asks her, she says, why do you not want to look at the books? She's like, I know so little of magic. She's like, I'm so fascinated by everything about them. Why don't you want to know? And then she says, I only want to think about my own spells. If I start looking at books, they'll tell me what to draw. So she is afraid that she will be directed. She'll be directed to use a magic that is not, quote unquote, her. She'll be made to do magic that's not fitting of who she believes her identity is and things like that, which these are kids. By all means, these are children, so we have to keep that in mind. And I can see like a kid, like, when you're at this age, you're just starting to develop your identity, you're starting to develop who you are. And so with magic being something that defines what you do and your expression of self, I could see why she would be concerned that they'd have her do spells that aren't what she wants. But in the same vein, she hasn't realized that using magic is not going to, it's not magic that defines who you are. You define the magic that you use. So she hasn't come to realize that. And that kind of ties back to the message at the beginning of the story that we're slowly working through. I like that we're working through that opening theme of how does magic define us, or do we define the magic that's used? And we're now getting through each girl an explanation and understanding of that. So also there's something about her brother, really, which I didn't know if it was her brother or sister until we got that talked to, that really is either something really is not present with Rich's life. And we're going to touch back on that here shortly when we get that flashback. Because I think I had some ideas about what's happened to Riley, but we don't know yet. So yeah. So she's just afraid that the witches are going to make her draw stuff that's not her. And there's more to it than that. There's stuff with Riley that's tied to it. But she's not giving that information out to Coco or anyone else right now. She's like, I don't need other people's spells. So what I was going to say is that there's a real world example where there's an author. They kind of became infamous last year through Book Talk, where they had spent years and years and years writing this book. And then it was released. And then people were commenting about how the quality of the book wasn't living up to the standards that they thought this writer had set, based on the knowledge that they were saying about their experience with writing before it came out. And what some people kind of allegedly took from the entire ordeal is they thought that since this one person had only worked on this one story without reading other works, because to be a good writer, you have to be a good reader. You have to read and be able to comprehend those readings, like those documents and texts that you read, in order to transfer that to what you write about yourself, because you will only be able to write based on the knowledge that you've gained as a writer by experiencing other texts. So if you just work on this one text, but you don't do research, or you don't do encounter any other writing, or you've not been, learned through other books, then your writing can only go so far. And I thought that was interesting because it kind of applies to Richeh here. Yeah, I can understand why Richeh doesn't want her magic to change. She doesn't want her identity to change, but she's never going to move further unless she encounters other people's spells. And she hasn't realized as a person, you don't have to adopt every type of style that you encounter. In fact, the opposite usually occurs. Encountering those other styles reinforces what you like. Like watching other series, on the channel and in real life, it's only helped to further my appreciation for what I do like. If I encounter a series I'm not as crazy about, I'm like, oh, well, this is why. And now I know I want to watch more of these because I like these. So Richeh's just young, and she hasn't realized that you can encounter other things in the world. That doesn't mean you have to go along with it. You can visit a town. Like I've visited cities across the country, but I visited them once and said, oh, that was neat. I've learned something about the history of our country, or this culture of people, or whatever. That was great. I'm not going to go back because it wasn't my cup of tea. But at least I feel like, you become more worldly and you become more learned of the cultures and world around you by visiting them. If you stay holed up in your own little grotto forever, then you're just going to have this narrow-minded view of the world, and that's not healthy, and you're missing out on so much, right? Like I know people in my area, because it's very rural, that they've never left this town or this county. They've never been around the world. They don't want to explore the world. And I'm like, why not? Like if you've got the money and you can do it, that's the biggest problem that anybody has, is having the resources to be able to go. But if you got them, go. Because, there's only so much time on this earth. You need to go and explore it while you can. So I feel for Richeh. I understand where she's coming from, but I also feel like she's just doing herself such a disservice. And so we find out she apprenticed to another witch before she came here. And man, if this episode did not show why the watchful eyes are important, I don't know what is, because Qifrey is Qifrey's a damn safe haven compared to some of these other witches that we've just seen. I was like, oh, interesting. She's like, Richeh apprenticed with another witch before she came here. Says she uses her stubbornness as a shield to protect herself. Like a Scalewolf making armor out of its thick fur. And that ties back to this idea that she, around Coco, she starts to shed that armor a little bit and let her guard down. But there's no telling. She might have been abused by another witch. She might have been and it doesn't have to be physical abuse. She could have been verbally abused. She could have been taken advantage of. This one witch that comes with Uni, I was like, oh my gosh, how horrible. And, there's no telling. So Qifrey is trying to tread lightly. And Qifrey's like, I don't know how much I should interfere and how close I should get to her, what I should do. I feel like Qifrey believes he's walking on eggshells around her, and he doesn't know if he can open up, or, how much communication is okay. And so he's trying to figure out her boundaries and the ways to sort of navigate through that. And I like that Olruggio, he's like, people aren't as simple as spells. He's like, spells are cut and dry. They're black and white on parchment. He's like, people are a lot more complicated and layered than that. But Olruggio has faith he'll be all right. And so he tosses him the stones, which these are so cute. Oh my God. SNUGSTONES? I'm sorry. SNUGSTONES? This man is a freaking teddy bear. I am constantly blown away. Can we talk about Olruggio for a hot second? Let's pause our Richeh journey, talk about Olruggio for a hot second. Look at him. Look at this man that needs more sleep in his life. This man comes across, he puts that facial hair on to make him look like a big old gruff bear. This man is the snuggliest teddy bear in the world. He's like, I made SNUGSTONES. The fact that they're called SNUGSTONES, oh my God. He's just like, and this is the thing. This is going to start our conversation about like the look at they're stones that warm up. I want these. I want this. He's like, it's meant as a sleep aid. So first bypass that we have is the SNUGSTONE. And that is a sleep aid that what it's designed to do is it just warms. It's just like a warmer. It's like a blanket warmer, but I want the stone. I want this. Like, this seems more convenient than a blanket. You put it under the covers. It'll warm you from tip to toe. What I like about it is it's a legit bypass to forbidden magic, because Qifrey said in the last episode that they can't use forbidden magic. They can't use sleeping aids because they're forbidden magic, because they can alter you physiologically. But here, this is not a sleep aid in the sense of a spell that's putting you to sleep. It's just making the environment warm so the conditions are there for you to want to sleep more. That's genius. That is genius. I love that. I think Olruggio is amazing. And he's like, I just need some feedback. So he's like, it could be a placebo, but give them out to your apprentices. And I look at this exchange. He goes, thank you. There's so much kindness in your spells. Which, looking at him through the glass, is essentially saying there's so much kindness in you. You put this kindness in your magic, and it's indicative of you. You express it better with magic than words. And Olruggio's like, I'm just trying to get some feedback so I can sell him. He's like, don't. He gets all cinderay and blushy. I see the blush on his face there. Mm-hmm. Sure. And look at this man. He's like, let's not argue, shall we? These two are married, Your Honor. They are married 100%. And then he goes, oh, well, there's 5 in here. I only have 4 apprentices. And he's like, the last one's for you. Shut up. Just stop. Stop. He's like, if it doesn't work, you just come back to my lab and I'll put you up in the hammock and we'll see if it works there. He's like, set an example for the girls and get a good night's sleep. You're a teacher, remember? And this man has the audacity to give him the extra, made one just for Qifrey, and then says, you're a good teacher, you need to be good for your girls, shows off his whorish Victorian nape, and then as he walks away, look at that smirk on his face. He knows exactly what he just did. He left this owl man in a fluster. Sir. I cannot. I just could gobble them both up. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And Qifrey's just like, oh, what? Just squirrel. Okay, so this was the second one. And this one is the idea. This isn't a big deal. This one's not a big deal, but I did think that the letter writing capability is similar to the twin bottle spell. Like, not in the same sense. Hear me out. It's similar in the sense that whoever's writing the letter on one end, it's going to write the same letter on the other end for someone to see. So it's like the magic is like a cell phone call or a text message. This is the magic equivalent of it. The thing is, the technology, I'm sure that the technology that pen has a casting seal that is similar to the one that was in the bottle. So I'm sure it's a similar seal. So it's a little pot calling the kettle black in the sense that you're using a similar spell. You're just doing it in a way that you can't use the contents of the bottle in any other purpose. The only purpose for this is that it's writing the letter that one person can see that the other person can see as well. So it's using a similar technology, but it's in a much safer environment and safer use than the twin bottles. So I'm not mad at it, but it does need to be pointed out that they are similar. So yeah, so Agott has been assigned the second test at the most ominous looking location, Serpentback Cave, you know. And the thing is, the way that they describe it, I'm like, this was probably a brimmed cap lair, or this is probably like a witch's cove at some point, and we've conveniently converted it to something that's much more family friendly. So then we get the dream that Richeh has, where Richeh's brother comes to see her. You're trying to make crystal ribbons. I also want to point out that Richelette. So Richelette is what Really calls her. So I wonder if her whole name is Richelette and she just chucked it down to Richeh. They also, the way that they're dressed and everything, I don't know if it's very indicative that they're from a certain environment. I know we talked in the English dub about their accents marking them from a different region. But then she bundles up the spell and throws it, and it creates this ball. And then she looks back at the brother Really and says, look, it's sparkly and roly-poly, isn't it pretty? And Richeh looks very young at this point, and so the brother tells her that, he says, I love it when you make spells that express who you are. And so that's so interesting. So what's fascinating to me is that they're not wearing hats at this point. They don't seem to be apprentices at this point, because later we get the image of Really joining a witch to be their apprentice. So my question is, it seems they're using magic without being apprentices. They're just doing it in secret. So there's so much to this world, and from what age do people get introduced to magic if they're from a witch family? How does that work? What about the world building? There's so much left to ask questions about, but we're probably not going to get that this season. Never stop being yourself. So that's the thing. Really goes away. Okay, and we get this witch that takes on Really as an apprentice. So Really tells Richeh to not stop being themselves. And Richeh has taken that very literally to mean that I cannot ever change my magic, because then it won't be me anymore and my brother won't care about me the same way. And it's like, oh girl, no, I don't think your brother was meaning that. I think your brother just meant don't lose shape of the kind of person you are, but you can make other magic. You don't have to just make this one spell forever. But she's young and doesn't quite realize that that's what he probably meant. So I want to take note of what his hat looks like. The hat that shows there, it shows a little tassel on it. And the hat has these crisscrosses, like a corset up the front of it. Interesting. And then the witch that takes him in has the front of her cape looks like this, where there is a hole in the front. For her, it's probably a window in there. And then there are some parts there. Very elegant looking. And then she has this long, she looks I'm like, is she Agott's mom? Wouldn't that be something if Agott's mother took Rich's brother in? Has the long flowy hair like Agott, but then has some streaks of silver in the front. If that turned out to be it looks very elegant. If that turned out to be Agott's mom that took Richeh in, that would be wild. As if these two didn't need any more conflict, fire and ice. That would be interesting. But then Richeh says, my brother didn't want to look at my spells anymore. So I feel as if Richeh feels betrayed that her brother left to go be an apprentice and didn't want to stay behind with her. So she feels sense of inadequate and insecurity because of it. She's like, don't go. So for all we know, her brother's still alive, just being a witch somewhere else. I think it's interesting, though, that the brother hasn't checked in or communicated. So we don't know if something happened to Really and Really has passed. We don't know if Really is still in school and just thought that Richeh was going to be an apprentice for a witch too and they'd meet up someday. That part makes me a little bit nervous. The fact that you've not kept in contact with your brother, that worries me a little bit. But anyway, so we get to this cave which goes into the cavern there. Very intriguing indeed. Those stones. Look at the stones that are at the front there that are the pathway. The pathway leading down into the snake has those little, like, they look like grave markers, or in this case, they look like little teeth or scales. Those are the same markers that were on the beach where the masked witch was. So that's interesting. Interesting indeed. So they show up. Agott is worried that she didn't get enough time to practice, and Qifrey's like, it's okay. Honestly, I think Qifrey was like, the main thing is you need sleep and you need some food in your stomach so you can have some energy. So he's like, mission accomplished. I got you to eat this baguette and I got you to get some sleep. So we're all good. And she's like, I'm going to pass this on the first try. So then we got this guy show up. Although he has long flowing hair, it is not the same hat as the other, but this guy's an asshole. I don't like this guy at all. He's like night and day with my little failure here. Don't like this. Don't know. The verbal abuse right off the bat in public? If this man is willing to say such awful things in front of other witches and the public about him, I don't want to think about what he says to the kid by himself. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Nope. But yeah, my little failure here. So this is Uni. Uni is adorable. I would imagine I feel like he doesn't chop his bangs so he can hide his horrible, like, despair in his eyes around this man. But I wish he would cut his bangs. I bet his eyes are really pretty. Yeah, Uni, my apprentice. He reminds me of a character from Blue Lock. That's why I made the joke in the reaction. He's tried and failed twice already, even though you can only take it once a year. Honestly, this guy grosses me out. And he's like, if only I could trade him for a daughter of House Arklom. Now, when he says a daughter, I don't know if that suggests that Agott has siblings. And so a daughter instead of the daughter of House of Arklom. That to me, when he says a daughter, means like, but it could mean that he just wants Agott. But it also could mean there's multiple siblings and Agott's just one of them. So I don't know. We'll find out. I do agree with Qifrey though, where he's like, apprentices are not things. They're not to be traded. Like, bitch, you were an apprentice at one point. So why are you treating these kids horribly? He's like, but don't you wish we could, and we can't repair them either. I don't like that at all, no. And this kind of shows with some of the witches, there is this idea, like, the reason why we have watchful eyes is to make sure that people aren't abusing their apprentices, which, you know, apprentices in some respect are, like, interns for magic, which, you know, suggests that being a witch is a business, which I don't quite agree with, and I don't think this series is proposing that necessarily, but it's also kind of like, it's not so much that apprentices are like interns of a business, it's more like apprentices are like foster children, in my mind, that are part of this, you know, family of witches. And so I don't like the vibes at all. It just, the fact that we can't repair them or fix them, I'm not digging this guy whatsoever. No, thank you. And poor Yumi, I like immediately feel for this kid. Kukro. Kukro is the master that I don't like, and Yumi is the apprentice. I like him. He needs to get away from this man. This man seems pretty evil. I don't like him. And he's like, oh, you shouldn't. Like this kid, like poor Qifrey is just like, oh my gosh, like you should have more self-esteem, small child. He splashed back into criticism against you, master. I'll probably never become a worthy witch. Uni. So what's interesting is, like, this kid says the exact same thing that Agott did about becoming a worthy witch, which suggests to me that Qifrey is like a freaking chocolate chip cookie compared to the other witches that people are working with, because Qifrey is so kind and considerate, as shady as he is, but if other witches are like this guy, no, I'm not here for it. So, Brush Buddy freaks out. What did she say? The closest window way has become unusable. So I had to walk all the way here. Well, that's ominous foreshadowing, isn't it? So the closest window way is unusable. I'm like, girl, did you put in a work order about that? Did you tell somebody in the higher authorities that the window way is not working? Because that seems like something that the brimmed cap set up. Just saying. She's like, I had to walk all the way here. Poor Brush Buddy. This is interesting. So Brush Buddy, of course, is intimidated because it's either to him looks like a giant Brush Buddy or a giant Brush Buddy coat. And she's like, that giant Brush Buddy's talking. He's like, she's a proper witch. She's like, but I thought transformation magic is forbidden. It's a mirror cloak of borrow shade. So we have this mirror cloak of borrow shade. So what does she say here? It is a contraption that, while worn, projects an illusionary guide. So it basically just creates an illusion. That one's not as bad. Now that I go back and read it, that one's not as bad. It's not really transformation magic. You're not altering your body necessarily. It's just perception. It's how you are perceived rather than, and it's not permanent. If you take the cloak off, then it's not going to be as big of a deal. So I'm Alaira. I love Alaira's design. She also, the idea of her with the giant white cloak. I don't know if y'all have seen He-Man before. They just came out with a movie that's like a new adaptation of it. I don't think this character's in the new adaptation, but there's a woman that she's a sorceress and she takes the form of a white owl. She was my favorite character in He-Man. She was amazing. But Alaira gives me the vibes. She also gives me Thundercat vibes, but that's beyond the point. She's like, I'm overseeing your participation. And I kind of like the way that Qifrey and her greet each other. When they greet each other, they put their hands on each other. Like she grabs part of his cloak and he grabs her arm. I kind of like that. I like that way of greeting each other. Like it's sort of it's a touch recognition. It's not a hug. It's not like a mwah mwah on either side of the cheek, but it's not a handshake. It's just a, hey, I recognize you as a witch. You recognize me as a witch. It's kind of like a little familiar gesture. I like it. She's like, you brought all of the apprentices. So the second test, Sincerity of the Shield. You become a knight with a shield and you have to exit Serpentback Cave. So you have to get from one side to the other. So the test is that as a witch, you serve as a knight to escort from one end to the other. As soon as she said that, I was like, oh, this will be a harder task for Agott than I thought, because Agott is used to taking things on herself and being like, I'll solve the problem, I'll get it done. Now, to Agott's credit, I don't want to talk smack about Agott. She did work together with everyone really well during the Dragon's Lair, so that is a good sign at least. But I was like, ooh, she's like, if either of you reaches the cave alone, you're out. But if you fail if you're witnessed casting spells as well. And she's like, there's no risk of the secrets of magic getting out, but you will fail the test because you'll be exposed as human. So they put on these cloaks that have the scales of the Scalewolves, which is so interesting. Also, the idea that the Scalewolf cloaks like have a magical purpose beyond like, I don't know how I feel about it, because I think it's really cool. I think it's awesome to use it as an illusionary cloak. But on the other end, the mirror cloak of borrow shade, on the other hand, I'm like, y'all had to kill them wolves to make this cloak for you to use for yourself. So that you didn't need necessarily. It wasn't, I don't know. I feel like there is an argument there of what the witches need for survival versus what the witches use for convenience. And there's a debate there. It's kind of like, people kill deer in my area to feed themselves, but also because we have a giant overpopulation problem. And it's affecting the ecosystem. I'm like, them killing these Scalewolves to make the cloaks, is that, like, how does that infect the environment? And I'm getting to that because she notes here with these Murphons, which are really super cute, by the way. She says they live by the water. Serpentback Cave, where the tests take place, is a magical ruin from a more tumultuous time. And can we also talk about the sigils that are used and they look like frowny faces? Like all of this. This is wild. This is crazy. Okay. A labyrinth spell pervades its caverns, making it dangerous to stray from the path. So you can kind of see, it looks like there's places where there could be the exit. That's so interesting. Okay. So you can't stray from the path. That is a wild ass spell. That, all of that included, that's crazy. Okay. So the second test is protecting the merfons from magic. It's been a route between the animals' breeding grounds and winter nests for ages now. We witches must take responsibility for altering their environment. So this is the interesting part of that conversation. So the idea is to lead the merfons safely from one side to the other without them noticing that you're using magic, because then they will recognize you're not a merfon anymore, and without taking the cloaks off, because then that'll ruin the spell. And on the one hand, I like the idea of the witches taking accountability for their previous actions, and by looking at the past going, yeah, we kind of altered their environment, and that's not cool, so we're trying to make up for it. I appreciate that. On the other hand, it kind of is a twofold moment. You're kind of killing two birds with one stone. You're like, well, we could dismantle this whole cave and open up the path for the merfons again and, not have this magic, but what a waste of a magic spell. I mean, we could use this as a test, And then the other part is with the cloaks, you're putting the cloaks on, but those cloaks are from animals you've killed. How does that infect the environment? I mean, there is a little bit of contradiction in the wording, but it sounds real nice. It sounds flowery and really good to the kids, but I feel like if you dig a little deeper, there's a little bit of contradiction there. And is it enough to not warrant the test and not warrant them using the cave? Not necessarily, but the point is you can't just take it at face value and consider everything that the witches are doing in the Pointed Hat Society as saintly, because there's a little bit of gray underneath that. And I find that cool. I find that neat to kind of explore that. That's why we guide and protect the young ones, making the trip for the first time to keep them from going astray. With the cloaks on, the merfons would see you as one of their own. Now, I like that their hats are still on, so you can tell which ones are the witches and which ones aren't. I do think that there is an argument to be made that if they destroyed the cavern and they destroyed the spell because it was made using forbidden magic, would it possibly destroy the cave and the environment, and that they don't want to take the risk, and that they don't want to know, and that they don't know what to do, so this is the best way they can think to get out of it? Sure. If you want to make that argument, sure. It's just interesting. But yeah, if you take the cloak off or disrupt the seal, the merfons will run away, so be careful. Yeah. So you can't disrupt the seal and take off the cloak while you're in the cave. Otherwise, you'll fail the test. That is hard. So, the little tiny babies! And the last one goes to Richeh. And Altair is like, well, you did submit an application. And Qifrey's like, you're taking the test too. Oof. So, okay. On the one hand, this is literally throwing the child into the pool and saying, you have to learn how to swim. This is literally doing that. If someone was mad that Qifrey did this, I would not blame you. I would not blame you. At first I was like, oh shit, he didn't even ask. He didn't tell her. He was just like, I know where Qifrey is coming from, and I do agree she does need to take the test. And I think that he's showing her, he's like, if you take this test, you're going to realize that it's okay to know other magic, to rely upon it. I think that he's right in saying that. Is it a little off-putting that he just threw her into this kind of dangerous situation without any knowledge or preparation like Agott had? Because Agott prepared for this test a lot. Richeh hasn't prepared for this test at all. So that part's a little like, you had two kids, one who's been very much perfecting the kiddie pool and waiting in the kiddie pool for years, and you have Agott who's been slowly preparing to dive off the diving board and been preparing to swim like this and been in the deep end, like accommodating themselves, getting themselves ready, everything else, and you take both of those kids to the diving board and you're like, okay, dive in now. And Agott's like, okay, I'm prepared for this. I'm ready. I think I can do it. But for Richeh, it's like taking a kid out of the kiddie pool, taking them to the edge of the deep end and going, all right, this is your chance. You know how to swim. You just don't want to go any further. Now swim. Survive. And I mean, I'm not saying that it's bad, but that is the strategy. That is what he's doing. And I do think that overall, she's going to be fine. But I would very much also feel like you're a liar. You've thrown me into this. You said I could do what I wanted, and that's why I came to your place. And she's mad in this moment, and she's just speaking out of anger. And he's like, I do care what you want, but you need to take this test so you can keep doing what you want. I think that Qifrey's trying to get at what we talked about at the beginning. He's like, in order for you to keep being a witch and practicing the magic you want to, you got to keep advancing. You can't stay stagnant. He's like, what you learn here is going to give you the ability to do what you want. And he's like, just trust me this one time. He says, trust her this one time, and then we're going to have these brimmed caps try to get involved. Oh, that's going to be, Although Agott and Richeh they're pretty self-sufficient. So if any of them could take on the brimmed caps, I think it would be Richeh and Agott, but they are just children, so we'll see. And she's like, if this makes me stop being me, I'll never trust what you say again. And he's like, it won't. He's like, Qifrey knows it won't, so he's like, you're going to be fine. It's going to be okay. We'll see. We'll see. And so then this guy, Qifrey, is like, there's no correcting people like that are fools. And then he's like, bye. He just leaves. Like, what an asshole. I love that he goes on this big tirade, and then Qifrey's like, were you saying something? That is how you deal with people like him. That is how you deal with people like him, Qifrey. Yes, yes, sir. Absolutely. Yes, sir. All about it. Like, oh, such a good move. Loved him for that. So yeah, he takes his leave. Altair's like, I can't believe you're not sticking around. And he's like, you two have got this. He's like, that kid's already failed twice. Like, what a horrible situation. Like, showing you have no faith in your apprentice. I'm with Altair's like, I can't believe he actually left. Qifrey's like, I'm not surprised. So yeah, poor freaking Uni. He's like, I'll try my best. Like, what a poor kid. I love him. Olruggio, you better watch out. He's going to be bringing in a fifth kid. Olruggio, you better be careful. Qifrey's going to be like, he looks just like you. And Olruggio's be like, that's what you said about Agott. You said Agott looked like me. And he's like, but this one looks even more like you. He's going to adopt Uni and bring him to the house. And it's just going to be another child. And Olruggio's going to be like, do I need to start coming to these things with you to keep you from bringing in the strays? I honestly let Uni get adopted. I would not mind that at all. May they all reach the end without getting lost in the dark. That's what magic is for. Magic being there to keep you from getting lost in the dark. Ooh, ooh. Honestly, I could see the brimmed caps agreeing with Qifrey on that. With the brimmed caps being like, if you're in the darkness like us, magic keeps you from getting lost. I could see that. So that's interesting. This did not go at all the way I expected it to. I expected them to have run into a brimmed cap at the end of this episode. I don't know what I expected the second task to look like, but it was not this. It really was not. So curious. And yeah, and then they all go. This migration. This entire episode was kind of bookended with the idea of nature and how, nature has provided a species with a way to survive and get from point A to point B. And then you have like these girls and these witches wondering like, how will we evolve along with this training to become a witch and not lose sight of who we are? And Qifrey's kind of like, well, because you're a human, you're going to be who you are no matter what. Even if you pass all these tests, you're still going to be you. Like that nature is still there. So interestingly enough, she goes in there with them. They all go in with their Murphin. And she's like, we'll just have ourselves a late breakfast. Qifrey's like, let's just hang out here. and I'll give you some history. You don't know much about the magical ruins like the Serpentback Cave. Forbidden spells drawn before the day of the pack will still linger across the world like scars. Scars can be viewed with a negative connotation, and they can also be viewed as signs of survival, or they can be viewed in a positive connotation. It really depends on how you look at them. So, interesting. Fascinating indeed. But yeah, navigating this is not going to be easy. She's like, didn't you say it? It's a test about using magic to protect against magic. So now, my little magic shield-wielding knights, how will you traverse this road? How will you take your merfins and get through using magic? How will you protect them from this path made by the brimmed caps? Oh, how indeed. Oh, okay. All right. I'm very fascinated. I'm excited to see what we get from this. That's going to be fun. Man. Intriguing indeed. So this was a lot of fun. I did not have on my bingo card penguin griffin crosses, did not have Richeh backstory, did not have Richeh taking the second test, did not have Olruggio being even more of a husbando, did not have Qifrey about to take in and adopt another kid, did not have an asshole wizard or witch on this. There were lots of things I was not expecting, but I'm so excited. And we have the penultimate episode next week for season 1, and that's going to be a trip. So anyway, I'm very excited to hear your thoughts down below. I hope you enjoyed this reaction and discussion. Please make sure that you like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see some more Witch Hat Atelier next Sunday, and so that you don't miss it. So in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and I'll be back very soon with more of Witch Hat Atelier. And I'll see you then. Bye.